Everyone, Eric Archer here from Texas Instruments, and tonight we're with Maynard Okereke, who is also known as the Hip Hop MD, and we're going to talk a little bit about that here shortly. But Maynard's here to talk with us about a lot of the videos that he did for the Smart Space video series for science, and specifically earth science. Maynard did some great earth science videos and a couple of physical science related videos as well. And we're going to take a look at those. In the meantime, just to warm everybody up, we want to make sure you're using the chat. So please, if you would, in the chat, if you want to let us know where you're calling in from, and let us know what your favorite science topic is. So, you know, if you're a plant person, maybe it's photosynthesis. If you like rocks, maybe it's the rock cycle. So kind of let us know what your favorite science topic is, and we'll take a look at some of those and respond to them accordingly. All right, so real quick, Maynard, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, and maybe tell us a little bit about how you became the Hip Hop MD.
Yes. Well, hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be on this platform. Pleasure to be working with you again, Eric. We're reconvening after doing a whole Smart Space series. But for those that don't know me, I am Maynard Okereke, better known as the Hip Hop MD. And I have a platform called Hip Hop Science, which basically uses music, pop culture, comedy as tools to be able to educate on a variety of different scientific subjects. And I pride myself on being pretty well versed. So I touch on everything from space sciences, earth sciences, physics, math, biology, natural sciences. My actual background is in civil and environmental engineering. Went to school at the University of Washington, go Huskies. And really the platform came about from me just merging two of my passions. I've always been invested in entertainment, whether it's doing work as an actor out here in Los Angeles and doing music work as an artist. That was definitely one of my number one passions. But I've also always been a science nerd. I always loved exploring, grew up on National Geographic, Bill Nye, BBC, David Attenborough. That was kind of my foundation. I always had an intrinsic passion for science. And the Hip Hop Science platform came about from just really wanting to express my love for both. And it's evolved into this platform where I can now use my voice and be a representation for people that look like me, more diverse voices in the STEM fields, and really being able to provide people that look like me an opportunity and showcase that there's science and everything, and that the STEM fields are definitely careers that they should pursue. So that's really what I pride myself on with my platform now.
Yeah, that's really awesome and exciting, and I love your story about you know, you have this engineering background, which in itself is impressive, but then you also have the creative side. You know, it's not just numbers and you know and solving equations and building stuff. You also have a creative side, so acting and music and all that kind of stuff, and then bringing those things together to inform, you know, students and others about, you know, why science is awesome and STEM careers that are available to everybody, regardless of where you come from or what you look like. And I think that's a powerful thing that you're doing. And man, we really appreciate you being here tonight and answering questions from the audience. While we're waiting on, you know, some questions from the audience, I have a couple of things I wanted to talk a little bit about. And one of those is the video series itself. So you and I did 5 videos. We did 3 Earth space science videos, and then a couple of videos that really kind of cross over multiple subject areas, but you know, we kind of classified them as physical science. One of the videos was called The Power of Earth. And in that video, one of the first things you do is pull out a Red Bull can to talk about energy. And so I was wondering if you wanted to kind of give us a summary of what that topic is about and sort of how it crosses over multiple disciplines.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I'm always about using physical examples to really be able to make that connection with science. And so you're right, I pulled out a Red Bull can, which I don't have in the moment because I'm already pretty juiced up and ready to go for the day. But, you know, the common saying, Red Bull gives you wings. And so we're focused on energy in that segment and things that give us, or things that are energy sources here on Earth. And obviously, when we think about energy, we're going to think about some of the main things, right? As far as physical energy and kinetic energy and potential energy and whatnot. I really wanted to make sure that we talked about some of the unknown energies that we don't necessarily discuss. And one of them was chemical energy. So I really wanted to showcase that dynamic of how the chemical energy processes and how we use as humans and as all animals on Earth need food and water to survive. That is a form of energy. We process food, we process drinks like Red Bull. The caffeine, is a molecule in there that actually works to really be able to counteract different effects within our brain that help us stay alert and stay awake. And so I wanted to showcase how that energy works within our bodies. And I think making that connection with energy, when we're able to show it in our world and what resonates with us, and really be able to understand it from just a foundational level of understanding, oh, it's an energy drink that's supposed to uplift us, but how exactly does it work? And how does that chemical energy apply in day-to-day things? So it can be from the processing of food, us processing water, the nourishment that we need in our bodies to survive, and really showing that everything is interconnected. Everything in the world is interconnected. Energy is never lost or destroyed, right? It's only converted. So this transfer of energy from whether it's a drink that goes into our bodies and now it's released as waste, ends up going back into the atmosphere or back into the soil, regenerated again, and now converted back into another form of energy. And really, when you're able to make that connection, you now opens up your eyes to how other forms of energy like potential kinetic energy, photons, solar radiation, all that works. And so starting from that little foundational level, we're able to expand and now go on literally a global scale when it comes to energy.
Well, I just love it because you took something that I'm willing to bet most kids are familiar with, and that's these energy drinks, Red Bull or whatever.
Yeah.
The protein shake that you had, and you sort of took that thing that they know about and related it to something that they may not have been aware of, at any kind of deep level. And then it was just a nice bridge. And I love that, simplifying science concepts for kids is so important, and bringing them back down to things that they can relate to scaffold their knowledge,
Yes.
with that foundation is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're a science communicator. So you go out and you do talks with people. I know you've done a number of interviews. You inspire students and at every grade level, college as well, to think about STEM careers. And we have a question in the chat from Allison. Any advice for teachers on how to best engage students in STEM in a virtual environment, which seems to be a big challenge right now for teachers? And I know you've got some experience with virtual environments, being a science communicator. Mm-hmm. What did you have for Allison on this?
Yeah, and you're right. We're in a new age right now where everything has gone virtual. I mean, that's why we're doing this live stream here, right? Yeah. Everything is in a virtual environment, and which makes it, in a way, it makes it easier, right? Because virtually you can connect with people. You're able to now host a lot things during a shorter time frame. But at the same time, it's a little bit more difficult because we don't have that one-on-one, that interaction, which we as humans need. And so there are a lot of different things that people can do, especially as teachers, to really be able to connect with their students. One of the things I like to showcase is really still finding ways to get hands-on, right? Because we, in classrooms, we're able to do whether it's experiments or be there in person to kind of showcase different things. We can't lose sight of that when we're in a virtual space. One thing I really like to highlight is showcasing that there's science in everything and giving kids the opportunity to now explore the science that surround them. And so there's a lot of different discoveries you can make literally in your kitchen cabinet or in your front yard or your backyard that still have a relevant connection to science. And I started this whole kind of backyard science series where I did nature explorations in my own backyard and really showcased the diversity of wildlife and plant life just around my home. And then even just doing science experiments here at home and really be able to showcase science. And we did some of that in our Smart Spaces series of how we can demonstrate different things like how to showcase rainbows, how rainbows form, or doing kinetic potential energy, physical examples like that. You still have opportunities and keeps the kids engaged because nobody wants to just sit and stare at somebody speaking on a virtual Zoom chat or Google Meetup or Skype or whatever tool that somebody's using. You still want to have interactive opportunities. So getting the kids, if you're working with the elementary school students, getting the kids actually involved by exploring their house and collecting tools and different things that they need to actually construct something and showcase a physical experiment and giving them the ability to get hands-on. That's a fantastic way. Kind of highlighting things that they can discover in their yard, getting them outdoors to still explore safely, practicing social distancing and whatnot in their homes. Those are all different examples of things that we can still keep our students engaged, but still be able to showcase the complexities and variances and nuances of science that's right outside their doors or literally in their homes.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, and you know what it requires on the teacher's part. They have to kind of take it to another level in terms of lesson planning, because they have to think through, you know, what do my students probably have access to, you know, sandwich bags or styrofoam cups, or you know, these kinds of things that they probably have at their homes, and if they don't, you know, what alternative can I share with them? So it does take some you know, a little planning on the teacher's part, but I think you can make it work. And your examples of sort of the diffraction of light with the glass of water was really cool. And, you know, I liked, you know, when you were talking about, and I want to ask you about this too, sort of taking the solar system, which is, you know, so big and massive that it's hard for us to comprehend it, and bringing that down to a scale that we can comprehend. And so, like, if you're an earth science teacher, you could say, okay, kids, we're gonna learn how to scale things down, you know, by a factor of whatever the number is, and find objects in your home that would represent the sun or Jupiter or Earth or whatever. You know, that might be another option that kids could do. So, and speaking of which, since we're on that topic, what got you interested in the earth sciences in the first place? Like, what was it that drew you to that?
Yeah. Well, for me, I like earth sciences because it's so involved and encompasses so much when you talk about science. And there's elements of chemistry within earth sciences. There's elements of physics. There's elements of math. Obviously, natural sciences when it comes to environment. You could even expand and touch on areas of conservation and climate change, because that all has to encompass, all deals with the earth and everything that's involved with the earth. And then space, you know, because in order to really understand how things function here on Earth, we have to understand how we're different than other planets in our solar system, and how the sun affects us, and gravity, and the orbit of the Earth, and seasons, and different things like that. And that's why earth sciences to me is a unique field, because you can touch on so many different scientific areas. And for me, you know, my background is in civil environmental engineering. And so I come from like a structural background where we're talking about building buildings for society, whether it's doing high rises and condominiums and stadium projects. So I have to have an understanding of structural analysis and materials, right? Concrete, how concrete forms, and structural properties of different elements. And that still has a relevance when you talk about earth science, because our earth itself is a structure, and understanding how the earth's core works, and how there's iron within the earth's core, and how that iron affects the gravitational field and electromagnetic field around earth, and how that electromagnetic field actually protects us from the sun's rays, right? So when you understand earth structurally, you're now able to expand on it and see how physically it affects us in our position within the solar system. And so that's really why I like it, because it involves so much, and you can branch off in so many different areas. And then within each area has its own little niche that you can expand upon and really dive into so many different things. And I think it's really great field for students to know early on, because now it gives them access to this wide range of subjects. And then they're able to now go into whatever it is that they want to specialize. It's like, oh, that, the molecules and greenhouse effect really sparked some curiosity in me. I could go now into the chemistry fields and dive deeper into my love for chemistry. If learning about iron within the Earth's core was something that really intrigued me, now I can, go into the field of geology and really now focus on geological studies. And so it
Right.
really gives them an overview, and then lets them now be able to define it further with whatever they find passionate about.
Yeah, no, that's great. I agree. It's one of these subjects that it's so varied. It's got so many different areas that you can go. I like meteorology. I mean, it's covered in the earth science,
Yeah,
oceanography. Like you said, space. There's a lot there. And we were talking earlier before the Zoom chat started about some recent things that you learned that are related to the earth sciences that you found interesting. What do you think most students would find surprising related to earth sciences that they may not have realized before?
Yeah. One thing that actually was brought up a lot and came from one of our smart space series that we did was just the simple topic of gravity. I referred a lot of people to some of the videos, and they would go back and take a look at the videos. And a question that frequently came up and has come up too in some of my other discussions when I talk about some areas of earth sciences is really understanding that, like, the fundamentals of gravity and how gravity works. And one thing that I highlighted within our series was that the effects of gravity when we're actually out in space, as far as astronauts, and the thought of there's no gravity in space, right? And that's kind of a phenomenon that even us, as we get older, we still kind of don't really have a great grasp upon, because we just think in our head, okay, we go in outer space and you see astronauts and they're floating. There can't be gravity in outer space. And so we just assume, oh, there's no gravity in space, and that's how it works. And when you're on Earth, you have gravity. That's why we stay here on Earth. But there's actually, as we know now, there's gravity everywhere, right? Because we're orbiting around the sun because of gravity, right? And the sun is 93 million miles away from us. So we know that there's gravity in space, or otherwise we wouldn't be orbiting around the sun. So why is it that astronauts are out floating about? And we highlighted that in our series of really talking about how it's not lack of gravity in space, but it's the fact that we're in constant free fall when we're in space. And that's what gives us the association of gravity, of no gravity. It's actually weightlessness. You're not experiencing any weight in space. And that's a simple phenomenon that really blows people's minds when they think about it, because we're just assuming that there's no gravity. But now we understand, like, tangential velocity, and spacecrafts are shooting at thousands of miles per hour, and now we're orbiting the Earth. We're experiencing weightlessness because we're in constant free fall position, but gravity is still acting upon us to orbit us around the Earth. And that's how we experience weightlessness. And that's what astronauts are experiencing in space, that gives the illusion of no gravity. So that's something I always like to touch upon. And a lot of people have highlighted about this series that they find cool.
Yeah, it's like, I know we in that video, we talked a little bit about the sort of the zero-G plane, which is, like you said, a misnomer now. I think NASA refers to it as microgravity, not zero gravity. When they're on the ISS and in orbit around the Earth. But like the other name for it is the Vomit Comet, the airplane that kind of does these sort of, parabolic patterns. And as they're kind of going up and then they start to come back down toward the Earth, the occupants inside are falling at the same rate that the airplane's falling. So they kind of float around inside the airplane. They're still affected by Earth's gravity, like you mentioned. But because they're falling at the same rate as the plane itself, it has the sort of the feeling of weightlessness. And that's a really cool thing. By the way, I have no desire to do the Vomit Comet.
Yeah, I would love to do it. That would, just to have that experience of weightlessness, even though it's only for like 5 to 10 seconds or so, I think that'd be a unique experience. So it's on my list.
Is it? Oh, well, you get a little bit of that when you go to certain roller coaster parks, but I'm finding the older I get, I can't handle the roller coasters anymore. You go up on that peak real fast, and you kind of feel weightless just for a second. So a lot of cool physics there too. A lot of cool.
Exactly. That feeling of your stomach coming out of your mouth, like, that's definitely the feeling you experience for sure. And that's all weightlessness.
It's. I don't know. Not for me, not anymore. I think when I was and maybe so.
Yeah.
Speaking of the videos, you did a video called "The Tour of the Solar System," and that was one of my favorites because you took us on sort of this tour of each of the planets and talked a little bit about those. Can you, for the audience that may not have seen that video, can you kind of give us a quick summary of some of the topics, some of the concepts you were teaching about each of the planets?
Yeah, and the purpose of that series was to really be able to showcase how Earth is different than other planets in our solar system. Because once we understand our place within the solar system, we now get a better fundamental understanding of how things work here on Earth. So we did a quick little tour through our solar system, and we touched on the other planets in our solar system. And obviously the ones that are closer to the sun are your rocky planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, right? And there's a reason why those are rocky planets. It's actually because of our proximity to the sun. Our gaseous planets that are farther out past our asteroid belt, they're much farther distance away. And so we talked about how planets actually develop and how the formation of planets. And, those high pressure systems, from the gravity and gravitational pull of the sun is actually able to form rocky planets that we have. And so understanding that Earth is a rocky planet is a unique element that you have to know if you're going to dive deeper into Earth sciences. But then, you talk about our gaseous planets that we discussed, and the temperature differences in the gaseous planets, and all the moons that planets like Jupiter and Saturn have. And how they're still able to maintain their orbits, and how those planets actually spin at different rates compared to Earth. The orbit of Mars, orbit of Saturn is much higher than here on Earth, and how that spin and how that rotation actually affects the shape of Earth. It's a much more, we're oblate spheroid shape here, but it's even more so on planets like Saturn because of their rotation. We have an understanding of our rotation, which is what gives us different days, nighttime, daytime, and then also our orbit, our tilt is what gives us our seasons. And so when we understand how other planets orbit and their different types of movements, we're able to see how different things affect them in different planets. And then even stuff like on Mercury, or on Venus, actually, talking about how Venus is actually the hottest planet, but it's actually the second planet to the sun. You would assume that Mercury is the hottest, but now that dives into areas about atmosphere and how Mercury has such a high atmosphere, or Venus has such a high atmosphere, and that atmosphere keeps the gases trapped on Venus, and that's why Venus is such a hot planet, which is kind of things that happen with climate change here on Earth, right? Because we're doing these different things as far as releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and that release of greenhouse gases makes Earth a lot hotter. That's why we're getting rising sea levels, and why polar ice caps are melting. And once you start to understand atmospheric conditions on different planets, that now gives you a better understanding of atmospheric conditions here on Earth, and why our conditions here present things like water and land and organisms, the ability for organisms to actually thrive and survive here on Earth. And so that's why I wanted to give that tour of the solar system, just to give a better fundamental understanding of different applications on different planets, and now be able to showcase the variances and the differences that are presented here on Earth.
Yeah, no, that was a great one. I really enjoyed that one. I mean, they're all really good, but I think for me, just realizing that there's a bunch of other planets out there, a bunch of other solar systems, within the universe, it kind of hurts my brain to think about.
Yeah,
everything about me. So there's not allowed to be anything else out there. But if you had to pick, if you had to pick between all of the planets in our solar system, and we had to go somewhere because Earth, we can't live on Earth anymore, which we have the best chance of surviving on, and why?
I would say for me, it wouldn't be a planet. It would be our moon. And we obviously are doing so much studies on Mars right now, sending rovers. We just sent the Perseverance rover to Mars to really be able to see if we could explore and find potential hidden ice caps or oceans on Mars in certain areas. But it takes time to get to Mars. We have the moon that's literally in our universal backyard. That's right here. We've sent man on the moon before. We've been on the moon before multiple times. So we understand a little bit of how to physically get there. And if we're going to make baby steps in now terraforming planets and different things like that, we have to try to find what's the closest to us, because traveling around space is the hardest thing that we have to face, right? There's a reason we haven't sent, man to Jupiter or whatever. It takes time to get to those planets, but we can get to the moon rather quickly. And that distance, that relative distance now gives us the ability to do so much more, whether it's getting payloads and structural components to the moon. If we're going to try to build a colony or something, we have the proximity, we have the tools and the ability to test it better, because we could either, with SpaceX and all these different organizations now making community space travel an easier thing to unfold, we now have the ability to get to these locations quickly. We have the space station, so we have these little baby steps along the way. You just have these little stations where you stop at and rest, or maybe have like a holding space for different construction tools or whatever it is that we're going to utilize. You have these little zones that you can set up in order to get to the moon really quickly. So I think it's much more feasible to think about the moon as a place to terraform, and use that as a more logical baby step to now eventually exploring other places like Mars.
Yeah, that's a really cool answer. Yeah, I was thinking like Venus is super hot, and Mars is so far away and it's very cold. the moon obviously is very cold too, because there's no atmosphere. But to your point, though, in terms of proximity, it's where we are now. I didn't expect that answer. Really cool answer. Yeah, no, thanks for that. Yeah, it's so that might lead us into another video question. So when we talk about like the video you did where how Earth works, if it looks like we're running out of time here, but if you gave like a 2-minute synopsis of the most important aspect of what students should take away from how Earth works, what would that be?
I believe in that series, How Earth Works, we talked about a little bit. What I mentioned was gravity, and we talked about other physical components here on Earth. I believe a lot of it tied into atmosphere and geological elements within Earth. And I think those are the kind of 3 steps you need to take, right? And that's kind of going from the outside, going in, right? Understanding, the sun's effect on Earth as far as solar radiation and light, and then going into our atmosphere, understanding how our atmosphere now dictates different weather conditions, and then getting actually down into the Earth and understanding Earth's core, and how Earth's core protects us. And I think if you look at those 3 layers of how the Earth works, that now encompasses a lot within that. And those are kind of the foundational elements that you can now build up into this bigger scope. But understanding those kind of 3 layers, I guess you would say, the light that comes from the sun, atmosphere and how that protects us, and then getting down to Earth's core, because they all tie in together. And then from there, you can dive deeper into subjects, whether it's the electromagnetic spectrum from the light and solar radiation, gamma rays, and ultraviolet rays, to understanding how greenhouse affects, as far as climate change, and how the atmosphere traps heat, which is what dictates, high and low pressure zones, and dictates storms and different things like that on the Earth's surface. To now deep into the Earth's core, really understanding how the iron within the Earth, geological effects, tectonic plates, the movement of Earth's core, and the different layers and subsurfaces of Earth, and that movement, how that now affects and shapes our planet itself physically. If you look at it from those 3 layers, I think that gives you a good foundation of understanding.
Yeah, you're in California. You guys have a little more experience with that than
we just had one just a couple of days ago.
Oh, did you really?
Not a huge one, but we definitely felt it for sure.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's kind of, it hurts my brain to think about, the Earth is a dynamic system. It's constantly moving, and that iron core is moving, and that magnetic field's created because of it, but everything's getting recycled at a very, very slow rate, but it's still getting recycled. Land turns into, magma, and the magma gets popped back up to the surface and cooled down and turned back. The whole rock cycle, the carbon cycle, the water cycle, everything gets recycled. It's truly amazing.
Yep, that's what makes Earth so wonderful, right? Like you said, energy is never created or destroyed. We find ways for it to recycle, and Earth's been doing this for millions and millions of years, and just see the dynamics and the changes within that all falls within Earth sciences. And fossilization of dinosaurs from millions of years ago, and now turning into fossil fuels that we use to power our vehicles, just seeing that interconnection between all these different elements on Earth, it really just kind of blows your mind when you think about Earth sciences as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I did get a question in here, and I'm not familiar with this. I don't know if you are, Hip Hop MD, but the question is, what do you think about the, that's a joke. All right, that one made it through the, never mind. I just got the joke. That's pretty funny. Yeah. Well, so anyway, I guess to wrap things up, because we are out of time. But before we go, can you let the people listening in know about your social media channels, so they know how to follow you and maybe get access to some of the other presentations that you do?
Yes. You can find me on all platforms at Hip Hop Science Show. You can't miss me. I'm in my headphones, crazy glasses, lab coat, doing experiments and touching on all areas of science. My website is hiphopscienceshow.com as well. I'm really active on Instagram, Facebook, and my YouTube channel as well, where I do a lot of long form exploratory content touching on all areas of science. So those would be the easiest platforms they can find me at. Hip Hop MD at Hip Hop Science Show.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah. So those of you listening in, please Make sure you check out Maynard's Hip Hop Science Show website and his social media channels. Maynard, I think we're out of time.
I know time flies when you're having fun, right?
I tell you what, I wanted to ask you a bunch more questions about the planets, but I think the audience, if you guys go check out those videos, TI calculators on YouTube, and look for Maynard's videos under Earth Science and Physics, you can see those videos, and he gets into much more detail in each of those videos, and they're really great. So check that out. With that, Hip Hop MD, I got to let you go. It was really fun. I hope we can do this again sometime.
Absolutely, definitely. Thank you so much, Eric. Appreciate it, and thank you guys,
Sounds
everybody,
good. Thanks
for
a lot.
tuning in.
Bye, everybody.
All right.